Good evening. My name is Jack Hunter, and you'll be pleased to know that I'm your last speaker for tonight. I'm the team leader of client maintenance for Colonial First State that forms part of the wealth management arm of the Commonwealth Bank. You probably would have guessed by now, but I'm not a refugee. I have had the privilege of leading a refugee in my team for the last 18 months though. This experience has had such a profound impact on my way of thinking, I jumped at the opportunity to share it with you all here tonight. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the bravery of the speakers before me. I'm not here to tell you a story of trials and tragedy, but I am here to tell you my story and how working with a refugee has changed my perspective. I'm here to use my freedom of speech as a responsibility to encourage each and every one of you to join me in my pursuit of living out the Australian idea of a fair go for everyone. To tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up on the northern beaches of Sydney with my mum, my dad, my twin sister and my little sister. And the hardest part of my weeks was finding out that mum wasn't taking us to McDonald's after gymnastics and swimming on a Friday night. I attended both primary school and high school on the northern beaches, and to put things into context for you, the three schools I attended had less than 1% Indigenous enrolments, and less than 15% of enrolments came from a non-English speaking background. If we look into this further, of those 15% that came from a non-English speaking background, I would say that almost all of those people were Asian. With a refreshed perspective, I probably could have taken the opportunity to ask them to help me learn their language, which would have opened up more opportunities for me, even more than my relatively privileged background already has. I've been horse riding for most of my life, and I pursued that briefly after school, moving to the Snowy Mountains and taking groups of people on horseback treks across the mountains, and then moving back to Sydney, riding performance horses full time. It does turn out, though, that the economics of horse riding doesn't really make sense in the long term. A lot of money goes into it, but unfortunately not a lot comes out. So, what does a young kid from the northern beaches do when he realises the reality of life? What else but become a debt collector? Moving into the city gave me freedom and exposure to far more multiculturalism and diversity than I was used to. To everyone's surprise, it also encouraged me to find the diversity inside myself, and thus I came out to my friends and family as being gay. If we skip ahead 4 years and after some success at work, I joined the Commonwealth Bank in Colonial First State. At the ripe old age of 23, I was given the opportunity to lead my own team at Colonial First State, being client maintenance. I had 13 direct reports, all from varying backgrounds with varying personalities and needs. A couple of months later, there was this talk of the Career Seekers program that our General Manager, Scott Henricks, was keen for our business to be involved with. I had absolutely no idea what it was about, nor how involved I'd become, or that I'd get a phone call from Lynn asking for me to stand in front of 700 of you here tonight. What felt like moments later, I was being told that our first intern, our first asylum seeker or refugee would be joining my team. If we just skip back to my upbringing for a moment, I'd been sheltered from these kinds of issues and generally encouraged to believe that it was something that I didn't need to be exposed to or involved in. The media and the politicians were making their statements about what they were doing about boat people, and those people were very rarely seen on our side of the bridge. Therefore, it wasn't our problem. I had absolutely no idea how to approach this situation. How was I supposed to talk to this person? What topics am I supposed to avoid? How good are their English skills? And am I going to have to find alternative tasks to make things easier for them? Thinking about my team, I started to talk about how I'm supposed to prep them for sensitivity and what I'm going to tell them when the intern arrives. If I'm honest, it was almost a bit of a why me, or why can't somebody else do this first and I can watch them? But it still happened. So the 14th of November 2016, Jean-Claude, now affectionately known as JC, arrived. Honestly, it was hard to tell who was more nervous, him or I. As we were introduced, Jean-Claude's first words were, "Thank you for this opportunity." This really struck a chord because it drove home that we, as leaders, were in a position to help JC and his family, simply by offering Australian employment experience that he is more than qualified for and capable of. It's fair to say I've learned a lot from my experience working with JC, not only about cultural diversity, but about myself and my understanding of and opinions around stereotypes, sensationalist media, and politician statements that use the latest buzzword or line to keep the viewers watching and the votes coming. JC joined the team and immediately settled in. His vibrant and passionate nature meant that he made friends with the entire team quickly, and he took to the job like a duck to water. He tackled any challenge we could throw at him head on, and always with a smile on his face. When we talk about Jean-Claude as a leadership team, the key theme we speak about is resilience. And we've heard this tonight. The unique circumstances that refugees have experienced to find their way to Australia give them a set of skills and attributes that we likely won't see in other candidates. After 12 weeks, Jean-Claude's internship was finishing, but there was absolutely no way we were letting him go. We immediately offered him continued employment, and 18 months on, he's a vital member of the client maintenance team, regularly receiving amazing feedback from our customers and financial advisors for his accountability and his service. If I think back to that moment when Jean-Claude was coming to my team, I remember speaking to my friends about that. Things were said like, did he come by boat or plane? Is he here legally? Does he even have the right to work in Australia? Does he speak English? To be honest, not only did I not know the answer to these questions, but it hadn't really crossed my mind. I was more worried about how I was going to make his internship as successful as possible and making sure the general manager was pleased with the result. To be honest, before working with JC, I may have thought similar things. Today, I know that none of those things are really relevant, though given he's in the audience tonight, I should probably say that impressing the general manager definitely still is. Working with Jean-Claude has totally changed my view on the importance of diversity and making Australia a welcoming place to migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. So long as everyone gets a fair go, what relevance is their backstory? This does lead me well into what I'm asking of you tonight. Here is where I want to talk about and highlight the importance of allies in issues like these. People, like you and I, who are willing to take on issues that don't directly relate to us. Without allies, minority groups struggle to become visible, get wider support, get leverage towards equality or recognition around the struggles they face. I absolutely in no way claim to have been through anything like what you've heard from our previous speakers tonight, but I'd like to draw your attention to the parallels across the diversity spectrum to bring things into perspective. Cast your minds back to the 15th of November 2017, my 24th birthday last year, when my country stood behind me and my LGBTIQ peers and voted yes, having the law changed to allow same-sex couples to marry. 61.6% of voters answered yes, giving us that fair go. It would come as absolutely no surprise to you that all 61.6% of those voters don't identify as being on the LGBTIQ spectrum, given that the estimated LGBTIQ population of Australia is approximately 10 or 11%. This means that the other 50% of voters stood behind our community as allies. Without these allies and without the support of these people, this result would never have been achieved. This principle applies across all diversity issues. Allies, like you and I, play an integral role in ensuring that everyone on Australian soil gets their fair go. If you're one of those people here tonight who haven't had an honest, frank conversation with someone who is different to you, from a different background to you, or who speaks a different language to you, I challenge you to go out and do that this evening. You're in a unique position here tonight, and when you walk out of this room and head downstairs, I'd ask you to take the opportunity to speak to one of the many people from different backgrounds who've gone through so much to be with us here tonight, about how you can make a difference in their lives. Go and talk to someone, learn something new about someone who is different to you, and I guarantee that you'll leave here with a refreshed perspective. We all have the capacity to make a difference, but if we sit on that mentality of what is one of us going to be able to do for such a big issue, or there's people working on this, then nothing will get done. Think about the difference that we could make if all 700 of us leave here this evening and go back to our employers with a view to support and employ those from an asylum seeker and refugee background. To conclude my talk tonight, I want to make a specific point of saying thank you to our refugees and asylum seekers. Every intern that has worked with us at Colonial First State has spent so much time thanking us for the opportunities that we have given them. We've heard this tonight though. Every speaker before me saying thank you and expressing gratitude for the opportunities that we, their employers, can provide. But I think it's time we take the opportunity to thank them for the contribution they've made to our business and culture. To all our asylum seekers and refugees, I'd like to say thank you for making our office more vibrant and diverse. I'd like to say thank you for your courage to come to work every day with a smile on your face. Thank you for reminding us all how truly privileged we are to live here in Australia. But most of all, thank you for making Australia a richer place. Now, I'd like to say a specific thank you to Jean-Claude, my first Rwandan mate, sitting in the audience. I don't know where you are out there, but if you can, please stand up. Jean-Claude, I'd like to say thank you for showing me the definition of resilience and courage. Thank you for sharing your story with not only me, but with the hundreds of people you spoke to when you bravely stood in front of all of our staff at the Colonial First State All-Staff Update. Thank you for the opportunity to stand here and share my story, because without having met you, I may have never had this change in perspective, and in turn, an opportunity to share that with everyone here tonight. Thank you for your commitment to excellence and bringing your bubbly, vibrant and passionate personality to our team and having such a positive impact on your peers. Last but not least, I'd like to thank you for your loyalty and friendship. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work, and I had made the assumption that there would be stairs up to the stage, but JC, I'd like you to use a little bit of your athleticism here. And I'd like you to come up and join me here tonight as I leave the stage. You're going to have to jump, mate. Thank you.